Thank you. Any questions or comments from the council?
No.
Mr. Williams, thank you. The Arts Council certainly brings significant added culture to the community, and appreciate everything you and your group does, and wish you the success in the future.
Thank you, and I hope to see you next month at the Art and Action Show.
Absolutely.
Mr. Williams, I would also just add that Mr. Clark sitting behind you is a big fan of social media. I'm sure he could probably help you out.
All right. We're meeting right next door.
I'm meeting here.
Too bad.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Carry on.
Any additional public comment? Seeing none, we'll move into our public hearing. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open public hearing? Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're in public hearing. This is the second reading and public hearing for two resolutions, 2013-11, which is a resolution to establish a municipal economic development and revitalization district, and resolution 2013-12, which is the TIF, Tax Incremental Financing District, up and around the airport district. We have Mr. Arnett to present. Stu, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Floor is yours. Please just state your name and address for the record so that Kirby can take that down.
Oh, okay, there it is. There it is, John. Thanks. Just stand by in case I blow it.
I'll do it.
Good evening. Hi, Stu Arnett with the Arnett Development Group, and we're pleased to be your contractors to help on economic development projects, including looking at how to best get investment, private investment into the what we're calling the airport area, in addition to the Pettingill Road, sewer, other things. And this is I think our third chance to discuss what we're discovering about the infrastructure investment for this area. I just want to take a minute and tell you that before I go into the presentation, you'll see that we've made progress since we've last talked to you. I want to give some credit to Kevin here, who's really hosted a wide range of meetings and discussions and brainstormings and spreadsheets saying, let's go to, start with ground zero and work up. Let's look at every assumption we've built this on. Why do anything? Why do it this way? Why do it now? And so we've gone down that path again. I'll show you. We're rethinking some things, not dramatically, I think all to the better, but it's been a very, I think, productive month since we've last talked to you about this. The Airport Tax Increment Finance District has, as its purpose, two goals. The first is basically economic development. The TIF district is enabling under economic development statute, and the outcomes, if it's successful, would be improved job production, a greater tax base, and better industry innovation, higher value industry. So the first goal is economic development. The second one, as far as using the TIF tool, and I should probably again introduce what that acronym means. We'll try to be acronym free here as much as we can. A TIF is a Tax Increment Finance, TIF, district, which the town would use new incremental tax revenues received by private investment paying property tax, take that incremental new revenue, nothing from the existing, but new revenue, and apply it against any bonding it did in that district until such time as that's paid off. So the second goal here, in addition to economic development, is by using a TIF, you can accelerate the bond pay down. I'll show you the ratio here in just a minute, because every year that you keep the bond open, it's costing $37,500 for every $1 million borrowed.
If I could interrupt just for a minute, just to make it clear, while I agree that the two goals are what's behind me on the screen, tonight, the action in front of the council is to examine the TIF district as it's defined, the construct, and so forth. But tonight, there'll be no obligation of any funds by the town.
Absolutely.
And that, if so decided to be pursued, would happen at a later time, and if it's a bond, it would be at the March election.
Absolutely, Mr. Vice Chairman. We'll state that a couple times, but I'm glad you did early again. Like with anything, the first question you ask in a public policy thing is, why do anything? The first reason is we know that if you adopt a district, it is an opportunity to, not a requirement to. It's an opportunity to use basically 80 cents in every dollar collected versus 21 cents if the TIF district wasn't there. Meaning if you, every incremental dollar coming in, because the town, school, and county operational budgets do not receive their portion, it leaves 80 cents of that dollar available to pay off the debt. Versus if you took it and it wasn't a TIF, you would just have the 21% that goes typically to your operating budget. So generally, it's a 4 times accelerator of the ability to pay off your bond, until such time as the bond is paid off. That's the only thing I can guarantee. I think there's many things we hope this will be an opportunity for, and this is what we'll be pursuing as we go forward between now and the town meeting. First, we think if we can do this, we'll have better quality of road and sewer infrastructure to be built versus what would be done if we didn't do it. We think the growth in the district will be faster. We think it'll result in better and more jobs. We'll show you a little bit why we're thinking that in a minute. We think it'll allow a greater tax base. And the difference is between $70 per square foot of assessed valuation to more like 100 plus, if we can encourage certain things to happen. We'll see benefits sooner because it'll be more coordinated. We'll be able to implement it quicker. We'll build into the infrastructure the ability to have expansion potential, such as making the road wider if traffic warrants it later, versus coming back and trying to buy right-of-ways after the fact. And then we should be able to get greater density. This is an area that has great potential, but also has some access issues. And then one of the things, a small possibility on this is an extension of the town's trail system, which is a real an amenity for this area for both residents and for new workers to come to the area. So those are opportunities that may come from this, and that's where we're going to spend more time looking at this over time. What we've said since day one, we'll say it again, we'll keep saying it, is our conditions before doing any funding is that per a determination made by the town manager that reports back to this council, even after the town vote, he has to be convinced that there will not be a negative effect on the town tax rate. It's basically a cash flow positive, neutral or positive on day one, and that there is also significant private sector contribution both now and subsequently later. So this is not the town doing this by itself. The decisions that are public policy decisions that are coming up because of this, the first one is to enable the airport area district itself. That is, as mentioned, one of the 2 resolutions. By 2 resolutions, one to adopt the ability to have any district, and then one to adopt this district. And I'll show you what the district looks like again in a second. As the Vice Chairman mentioned, it does not commit the town to spending anything. And the possible uses for under the district are the 2 that have been talked about for some time: road improvements and a sewer intercept. And there's also another half a dozen that might happen depending on how time goes. One of the things we've done all along, I think we've said to you, is that in the adoption of the enabling statutes, enabling budgets, the enabling vision, you want to be overly expansion. You want to include things that have only a small chance of perhaps happening, because if you don't have them in now, you can't put them in 4, 6, or 8 years from now. I've worked with a couple towns recently that kind of are kicking themselves that they wish they had put some what-ifs in when they adopted it, because times have changed. And so just because we're putting some of those in, that does not mean you have to do any of those. It just means if you decide to do it 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 15 years later, you have that ability. The second public policy thing is mentioned is the decision about doing a TIF bond at the town meeting, and that has to be a vote just like any other bond of the public with the majority requirements. Public vote. Again, even after that, we would have construction numbers before go, so that if the construction numbers came in much higher, we could hit the brakes. Again, the town manager is going to report back that he finds that it meets a cash flow neutral or better requirement, or it doesn't go forward. And the third decision is one we've added tonight that we've talked about before, but we haven't specifically talked about here, is a parallel program, and it's not part of the two resolutions. It's going to come later, just to let you know about it tonight. The Economic Recovery Zone, ERZ expansion. You have 2 ERZs now. We're going to ask you between now and the end of the year to expand one of those. And the reason we're now linking the 2 up is we're going to get a little close on time. So we don't like to confuse you with the 2, but they're both, you'll see why they're complementary. And that is to increase the size of an existing zone, thereby increasing the number of Londonderry businesses that are eligible, and allows those businesses to apply for a state tax credit against their BET or BPT. Okay, back to the district itself. Back in August, we presented this map of proposed district. It was a little bit different than the one that was presented to you a few years ago. There were some concerns that it seemed bigger than it needed to be, and there were also some concerns by property owners that included agricultural and residential land. Remember, a TIF district is not a zoning map, but rather than have people who were including this not want to be, we did make some revisions, and this is what the map is now. We've taken off a big piece along the eastern portion, which was predominantly residential or agricultural. We're still well below the criterion of the 5% and the dollar amount. And it does fit the growth patterns of zoning a little bit better than the first one probably did. But you can see we took quite a big section out. The little stinger coming out of the back, by the way, the little red stinger, that includes the road, because that means if you wanted to do something to that road down the future, it's in the district. It's literally in the district. So that's why you have that little red stinger coming out the side. The ERZ, again, very quickly, it allows local businesses to apply for a state tax credit. The reason we're bringing it up, it's time sensitive. It has to be in place by the end of the calendar year for the business to be able to include it on their state tax application. This is what we're proposing. The 2 blues are the existing ones, and on the blue one on the left, we superimposed the red lines of the TIF district. The one on the right is a different ERZ, and what we're proposing is the red area expansion going up along the side of the airport. We've had a couple businesses already say they would be very interested in investing more in their properties if they could have this expansion. So those are the areas that we're proposing to be expanded.
Could you back up one slide?
Sir.
You can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the ERZ, it would seem, I mean, it seems obvious that that would be an incentive to businesses wanting to move into the district to get this benefit. But beyond that, obvious to me, do we have any evidence from either business statements or from other TIF districts or ERZs that that's actually what happens?
Yeah, the area that we're proposing, Mr. Vice Chairman, is being added because of businesses that are already there that are seeking that as an incentive to invest in the existing facilities. But we haven't even talked about it being listed as an incentive for companies coming in. The credit is a fixed dollar amount set by the legislature every 2 years. It has historically been exceeded, the request, and so what happens is the requests are pro-rata down, so if it's 110% requested, you might get 90% of what you've asked for. So what we'd like to do is make sure that as many existing companies have that opportunity to have to receive that credit. So this is being added predominantly, if you can see the area is, that's predominantly area that is built out. And it'd be more for existing businesses than it would be for the newer ones, which are more in the 2 blue sections.
And the credit is to the New Hampshire state business profit tax, not to property tax.
Correct, either BEP or BET.
Mr. Chair, I would add too that on Friday I actually received a call from one of the developers that has land on Pentonville, asking if that was already within the existing ERZ, because it was very important to one of the companies that's looking to move in there that that be established as part of the ERZ, which it already is. But yeah, Stu and I have had the meetings with the existing businesses that have asked for that expansion in the red zone that you see up there. And also state officials from DRED met with us about this, and they are very much supportive.
So to be clear on the map, what's in red is the expansion of the ERZ, not it'll make the entire area that's blue the ERZ.
Correct. It's actually two different ERZs split by 28. But the red would be amended to the one on the west.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any potential downfalls to creating this type of zone?
The only thing we're going to go back and double check, I think John has done it with it, but is to make sure that we're within the caps of how much you can put in stuff. But otherwise, no, it's.
So there's a certain percentage of area that you can,
Yeah, I think we have some limit. It's not a percentage. I think that you have to make a case that the area is either undeveloped or in need of redevelopment. So I think the only thing that might change the parameters, Counselor, is if we look at something and the grade comes back and says, that's really doesn't quite fit the parameters, so take a parcel or two out. But I don't think so. I think this will be fine. And it is not a cost to us.
And last year, didn't we do this on Jacksford Road?
Yes, yeah, that's the parcel to the east. So,
The blue one, yes.
yeah, this area here now.
Yeah. So this is what you did, this was put in for the tire company and Coca-Cola right now?
Yeah, the Jacksbridge Road area.
Yeah.
Thank you. Please continue.
I appreciate your questions, thanks. And I apologize that we brought this into the other discussion, we're trying to get them both
Right,
through the
no,
door.
it's good. It's good.
As I mentioned, Kevin's been asking some good questions of a lot of people about what do we need to do and how come, and it became apparent that some of the past was a big part of those answers. And so, just taking some of you probably back, the evolving vision for why this road and the sewer was important started with the 1993 charrette. And what I'd like to do is just point out how this is designed. You'll see there's a cluster here, there's one big building here, there's a bunch of buildings there, sort of a village look here, a lot of interior roads, but a lot of shared areas. Kind of a bit of a mixed use, not residential, but office, healthcare, recreation, almost everything but residential. Again, clusters, fairly high density. Many buildings are envisioned as multiple floors. And this is where some of the original traffic projection numbers were generated from this 1993 charrette. For good reason. It was it was well before a lot of other things happened that we now know. And your master plan was just adopted last year, a similar higher density pattern. Again, clustering of buildings, sharing of roads, smaller 10 to 50,000 square foot buildings, amenities, again, almost more of a village feel to it, higher volume, higher square footages, and without making too much of a comparison, other than the residential component, somewhat like the Woodmont design, in a sense of a lot of cluster, a lot of village, a lot of density with green space and such. And that, of course, certainly this charrette was prior to the Woodmont proposal being out. What's really happening is,
Excuse me, can you
sorry.
go back to that slide for a second? Can you just show people at home maybe that were questioning the Pettingill Road? Can you show them both where
Oh,
they
sure.
are right now? So that's Pettingill on that one. How about on the other one?
There's one.
Yep.
And there's the other.
Interesting.
You recognize that little
Factoid.
odd, the hard, I shouldn't call it odd, the elbow here, and there's the elbow over there. Excuse me.
There's a 20-year span between those two events.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, there was a third charrette. I don't know if John could pull it out of the archives, but almost exactly midpoint between those two dates. I think it was '03. There was another charrette that was done.
And I'm hoping to say that it was also probably the same idea of fairly high clustering and mixed use, but not residential. Okay.
Right, right.
So, based on current inquiries, of which you've seen one in the paper about the one facility that's come to the planning board and gotten some preliminary, but just on what's kind of been in the pipeline and what's been kicking around, and as Kevin mentioned, different developers have been contacting him about what if. There's a lot of interest in the TIF district and things happening. This is the kind of what we thought just a year ago and then what's being talked about today. The underlying map is the one you just saw from the 2012 master plan. What we're showing here are 4 inquiries that are in the pipeline. I don't know if they're not, I don't know if they're prospects or possibilities, but just their inquiries. What if? And what you can see is that the buildings are farther apart, they're standalone, and they're substantially larger. And I think all of them, but maybe one, are talked about are single floor buildings. Logistics and distribution is becoming a real strength here, which is a good thing. It's one of the industries that's doing very well in the country. So one of the things this may suggest is what we thought was needed for infrastructure may not be what is needed for infrastructure, because larger single-purpose buildings have a couple things. They have less overall traffic. They have much less traffic at peak times, because you don't have people coming at, it's much more of a 24/7 world. Sewage water demands are different. They're less, plus they're less peaked also. You don't have the evening, dinner time phenomena. Drainage can be different because you're not designing drainage as much for villages as you are for site by site, although you still want to take advantage of shared drainage plans as much as you can. So all of those questions about what exactly is necessary are kind of back on the table because of what's really, we think really is beginning to happen versus what was perhaps suggested in 93 and in 13. So here are the projects that under that big umbrella of what could happen are kind of 5 categories: the road and traffic fixes, the extension of the town trail system, acquisition and securing of any rights of way, sewer, be it intercept or connections, and water and other utilities, broadband, sidewalks, lighting, whatever. The thinking of the TIF financing now, we've said, well, it was going to be 12.4 million and we were going to do everything, and now we're saying maybe it doesn't need to be, maybe we can do a mixture of public-private, maybe we can do things in phases. So this is to start seeing some of the ranges. As far as the road and traffic fixes, again, it could still be up as 8.5 if we decide to do the road that was discussed all along with the limited access and the 4.4 kind of 5 lanes. We've also talked about maybe if things happen fast enough, you wouldn't have to do anything. That if developers came in and said, gee, we want to do everything, we wouldn't have to do something. I think we would argue that there might be some quality control issues there, but we're open to the idea of 0 if that's what makes sense. On the trail, we've budgeted a couple $100,000, but we might find a major employer come in and say, gee, this is important enough to our employees to have a trail system that we'll pay for it, or we'll pay for it at the back end for an impact fees or such. If the town's going to do it, of course, this would be a good time to do it because, again, you're paying for it with that 80% money instead of 21% money. Rights of way, I think we're still expecting that should not cost the town anything. As to sewer, we talked about that being $4.5 million on the bond. There is an existing $2 million escrow in the sewer fund capital budget. So some of that may be able to be used here. So that might bring that number down. I think we all know that we want to be very careful about using town-wide funds for one area. Don't want to go down the road again unless we're really sure we can do that. Also the same issue with if the private sector wants to do it themselves and we find a system that works, 0 is okay too. We did have a productive meeting with the city of Manchester to talk about both water and sewer. They have some concerns about what they call piecemealing, that it not be seen as, they'd much rather have an integrated design, integrated flow. But if we're open to the idea that if we don't need to do something, let's not do it. And then as far as water and utilities, right now we're planning that as far as water especially, that would also be zero to the town, because right now it's envisioned that the developers pay, and they pay to, and it's built by the city of Manchester. They're actually the people who contract the construction of the water. And the water is already kind of in the area, so it's an extension. However, going the other way, there may even be an option that if the town wanted to finance it and recoup it, it might be more efficient that way. You might get better quality control. So I'm not suggesting doing it if you don't need to, but it's something I think we'll just at least talk to both developers and the city of Manchester about as an option. So you see now we're getting to where the cap is still where it was at 12.5, but I think we'll try to be as open as we can to alternatives that might either be less and/or phased. So here's where we talked about the road, the traffic and the trails. The town would pay for it with the tax incremental financing, plus any grants, plus any escrow, plus any owner money up front from developer exactions, plus any owner users from the backside for fees, any other source. And we're saying all of those together must equal to where the resulting debt flow hits that the neutral cash flow requirement. So I'm going to show you in a minute all the different things we're looking at as far as sources of funds. As far as the sewer, we're going to look at carefully what that town escrow of $2 million can be used for, see if there's any grant funding, town bonding, and any user and connection fees. User fees typically are a little more upfront. Connection fees are obviously later when it's constructed, and they pay for their portion of the allocation. And then water utilities, just I mentioned a minute ago, we assume that the city of Manchester is going to get paid by the owner and users for the most part, unless the town finds that the bonding is favorable to itself for quality control or even for an enterprise fund kind of thinking. I promised a couple of you that we would show you our spreadsheet. This is not a live version of it, and it's probably the counselors the only one who can read the small print, but this is the sort of thing we're running it through. These are all potential capital expenses, from Road 1 to expansion to utilities to, so those are expenses. These are sources of possible funds coming in that are not property tax. These are now projections of incremental tax revenue coming in at different square foot assessed values. So you can see the difference. You have some that are $70 per square foot and some that are 100. And you can see all the fields to the right are blank. That's intentional just because we wanted to show you the worksheet. But as those inquiries become more or less real, we start doing forecasting. The result being, here's money going out, here's money we had, here's money coming in, the difference, and then what that means for both the quarterly interest payment and then also the accumulated. And one of the other things we did, it's a little bit different, we're doing it by quarter. And this spreadsheet goes on past the other room. We're doing the first 3 years because that is the maximum amount that we talked about an interest-only bond if we need to do that. And the reason quarters are real important to look at versus just annual, remember the first time we showed you was annual, it looked pretty good, is that you have some interesting phenomena about when does the tax year start, and if you get your increased tax bill today, when do you actually start paying it, and when does the bid go out versus the contractor getting money, and is it front-loaded or back-loaded? So you wanted to really be careful about looking at it on a quarterly basis instead of just doing annualized summaries. But those are the categories we're looking at, and every time we do this, we do a scenario, we put different numbers in, and it's got to get to where Kevin's pretty sure at the bottom and it says a positive number. Okay, actions needed going forward. The TIF district adoption, it has to be done before April 1st at the latest, because that's when the new assessed values are issued. So if you don't pick up anything before today and then, you lose it. And as I said, sooner is better, because there have been challenges to that April 1st deadline for things that are picked up between April 1st and April 1st. So if it's adopted sooner, there's no question that you're picking it up. If you wait till April 1st, someone can come in and say, no, you're doing it retroactively. So I would recommend sooner is better on that. But April 1st is the date that the assessed values are set. The bond vote would be this coming March in 2014, and/or could be in subsequent years for subsequent phases. Once again, you've set the umbrella. You don't have to do it all in the first year. So if we find a way of phasing things, you could do, here's your cap, and then here's what we do in 14, 15, 16. Again, we only act after the rights-of-ways are secured. The rights-of-ways, by the way, will need to be secured with some time conditions, I presume, where, you know, if the town can't make something happen in 20 years, the rights-of-way revert back. But it's also got to be long enough that, you know, we can put things in effect. We have to have school board and county commission hearings, much like this. There's 2 school board meetings in November that I hope to be on one or both agendas if I can. Council votes the district, both in the enabling and in the specific. Then between now and the actual decision about to bond, you'll have bond council review documentation. The treasurer will fix a bond rate and term, so you'll know exactly what the term rate will be. And then the last step is the town manager issues his zero negative cash flow assessment to the council. Then you'd want to have the road and sewer construction start by July of 2014 to keep your existing permits. It's not the end of the world if they don't, but it would be nice not to have to reopen that topic again.
Excuse me, and if we do reopen that topic, what's the cost to the town to re-permit? Is there a cost associated to that?
No.
No?
I think that the issue for cost might be, what if?
Okay.
If nobody makes a major challenge to that being extended again, then it would be, I think we're just kind of thinking, we would not open that door if we didn't have to. And then the ERZ, that has to be in place by December 31st. Okay, next steps, we're almost there. The process going forward is school board and county hearings. We'll establish a baseline assessed value at the adoption, because that's the start point. Using that spreadsheet and our projections and planning board permits and stuff, we'll determine a TIF revenue stream, and then set the best terms rate for the bond recommendation for the town meeting, and then establish a TIF advisory board. Additional questions for the staff to take care of: is this 2 or 4 lanes? What's the traffic demand going to be, and can we do 2 lanes now and 2 lanes later, or is that not much of a savings? And we've begun asking some of those questions. Decide if there's phasing, so that we can borrow less up front and accrue funds as they come in and for subsequent phases. Final sewer and drainage placement. There's a question of building access to the airport-owned land. At the same time, if we are building a road, and exactly what's the water utilities situation going to be. So the council votes are to establish the district, both enabling and then a specific site plan. That's where we're at tonight. At a future date, to recommend a TIF bond at town meeting. And you're going to want to know then terms and rates and answers to a lot of those questions I just brought up a minute ago. A third action is to adopt that ERZ in this calendar year, and adopt RSA 49C if needed to recoup costs. And I haven't spent much time talking about 49C tonight, but I think I described it last time. That's the authorization that allows a town to charge a pro rata share to developers that hook onto town infrastructure. So if it costs you $1 million to do something, and later someone wants to buy 10% of that road or 10% of that sewer line or water line, you can charge them 10% on that, on 49C. So if the council decides to go that way, it's a whole nother conversation we need to have, but it's a way of recouping costs from the private side. And that, I think, is it. Anyone give me back that last time. And I'd be happy to answer questions and appreciate your attention.
Actually, don't you have to do something a lot sooner than that? Because don't you have to put any bond scheduled for March of 2014, early January?
Yes. Yeah, so we'd have to act sooner than later if we were going to determine that we wanted to.
Get it on the warrant, yeah.
Any other questions from the council?
What's our investment to date up there? We know?
I think we just have the impact studies that we've done.
Dollar amount?
John or Janos?
Janos?
Our investment so far is the designing of the road. It was around $236,000, and $150 I think came from the Londonderry Housing Authority, and the rest was, and that was established, how many years ago? Almost 10 years ago. That was the article to design it, so that's our investment to the project.
And on that $8 million on the road, is that designed for 2 lanes or 4?
That's for 4 lanes.
That's for 4,
That's for
so
four
that's,
lanes.
okay.
That's for full build-up, 4 lanes, 2 major intersections, an industrial drive, and then next one in the middle, and then a third one so actually 3 intersections, but 2 major ones.
So if it was possible to go to 2 lanes, would we have to pay another $150,000 or $200,000?
Yeah, definitely will have to be redesigned, the road. I don't know exactly right now the price for the redesign, but yes, it's possible to, to build 2-lane road and, reduce the cost substantially, and then treat this as a first phase, and then, expand when the traffic will expand. The 4 lanes was designed for full build-up, looking 20 years ahead, but area like that will open, and in 5 years you will notice that it will be going very quickly to full build-up. And
So the design, a 2-lane road design would be a 4-lane road on paper.
what the 2-lane design will look like, that we will leave the right-of-way for 4 lanes, obviously. We will leave the drainage design for 4 lane, and we will leave the media alone, and we will pave only and build embankment for 2 lanes on each side of the media and the shoulder, and slope it down to the drainage. Then later on, we'll be able to build up the embankments and put additional lanes. When we were in the past, we were looking at reducing the cost and building 2 lanes and building a full embankment, and just only saving on a pavement was not enough. So we are looking at substantial saving, so we will have to reduce the embankments. But it makes only sense to leave the drainage in the area that you don't have to rip it out and again build again.
So the money that we paid a while back for the 4-lane, we can't use any of that design at all?
No, it will be, that design will be used for full build-up.
Okay,
So if you use now the first phase, you will have to design the first phase, so spend the money on designing the first phase. But the full build-up, it's correct plans and doesn't have to be redesigned.
so it's not being thrown away, basically, okay, good.
No, it's definitely not
All right,
thrown
good.
away. No.
What other questions from the council?
Well, if we did the 2 lanes, you're going to tell me that it's more cost-effective to wait now or wait later to put in the other 2 lanes than it is to build it out?
You're asking the wrong guy, I think.
Well, I know, but I
You
wanna
already
hear
know
his
my
opinion.
answer,
I know what you're, okay.
from the past. I definitely know, obviously, if the TIF will not pass for 4 lanes, then, and we want to, to do this, then we are looking, how we can reduce the cost of the TIF. But, Mr. Tom is laughing, yes, if you wait, I wouldn't know. Plus, we could maybe do this, that if the prospects are coming right away, that right now we have only development that can pay off for 2 lanes. But within a year or 6 months, we already see another developer coming, and that could pay for more. Why not changing immediately? Okay, let's put a change order, let's start building the full, because we can pay off and can support. Whatever will come will support the full build-up, will support 8 million. So that's the option that you could look at that, in your spreadsheets.
Right.
And that could be also good, a possibility.
I think the other thing we want to make sure we do is look at the traffic generation numbers now that we know more what's really happening. And so it'll be more updated traffic numbers that'll drive that, where the 1993 numbers, again, envision a much denser, more people, more cars than they are now.
I think it's important to remember, too, that we're looking to stay tax neutral or tax positive with this. So really, a lot of it's being driven by how quickly the development goes into there. If the development can support a full build-out in year, 1, 2, and 3, then it makes sense to do that. But obviously, if it doesn't, we're not going to go for full build-out right away.
I guess the only concern that I'm sure people at home are even saying, okay, you have 4 lanes, 8 million, divide that by 2 lanes, 4 million, but it's gonna cost you another 6 million, you know what I mean? To do the other 2 lanes later on, so that's, I understand we're trying to get it done, but, when you ask the question, how much, it's not just like splitting it in half, you know what I mean, so.
Any other questions from the council?
And we would certainly have a lot better answers to all those questions before saying anything on the bonding.
Okay.
I have a question, Stu. The order of execution of this process, are we in the right order now, voting on the TIF, on a TIF resolution tonight?
The enabling and then the resolution, correct. It was a second reading.
We don't need to have the school or county hearings done prior to,
All they have to do is have had the chance to attend, and so that's what today would be.
oh, I see, okay.
We certainly, I think anything we hear from those hearings we'll certainly bring back, and
Yeah.
I think
There's nothing in the process that binds the council to have to wait for those hearings. I would remind you as well that at any time, you can amend this district, you can even do away with this district at any time as well. So, if you were to vote and adopt it tonight, the school board and county hearings would still happen afterwards, and certainly any new information can be brought back before the council.
I think it's 2 different things, right? One is putting a stamp on the area, and the hearings with the school and the commission are basically to say, okay, now that we have this district, is everybody on the same page to go forward with the TIF or in a bond?
Yeah, let me speak to 2 things as far as their specific things. One, we had heard, and I don't remember how it got to me, that there was some concern from school board members or such that the district was too large. That's one of the reasons we took that large section out. And 2, in the proposal, we are proposing a specific revenue sharing, for lack of a better term, that basically says, once there is positive cash flow for a full calendar year, after that, any surplus will then get split 50-50 between accelerating payoff back into the district or adding the extra lanes or whatever you decide to do with it. And the other 50% goes back into the general fund to be used by school, county, and town. So in the proposal in front of you, we're proposing that. So they might come back and say, gee, we'd like you to put 60% back in. We'd like you to put 25% back in. I've been in towns where the school have said, don't put anything back to us, just accelerate the thing so we know. So that is the sort of thing I'm expecting here, Mr. Vice Chairman. But I think the parameters of the district, and because we're asking so many questions, I don't think there'll be.
Right. I think the council is just,
Certainly as a courtesy, we want to make sure that
we just want to make sure, the council wants to make sure that we're reaching out to all our constituents.
Yes.
To include the school and county
Right.
governments, also to include the landowners, the airport, whatever. So we want to make sure everyone has a fair shake to give
Yeah.
input.
And there will be a step here that once you establish the district, even if you don't get to the bonding, you can establish your advisory board right off the bat.
Good. Any other questions from the council before we go to the public? We'll come back to the council and have more discussion after we engage the public. So we're going to open it up to public comment now on Resolution 2013-11, which is the establishment of the Economic Development Revitalization Zone that you saw the picture of behind me, and also Resolution 2013-12, which is the adoption of the airport TIF district. Anyone like to just come right up, please?
Ann Champa, excuse me, 28 Wedgewood. You can stop me if my questions are a little too far off topic, but I was just wondering, maybe I missed it in the last couple of months. What's the status of the $8.2 million Tiger 5 grant for Pettingill Road area? Is there any news on that, or how, would that affect this at all?
Stu, you have a status on that?
We haven't heard, and so the ones that have been awarded have heard. So the premise is that's not good news. But if you notice in the possible sources of funds, DOT grant was one, and that's why if we got 8.4, then we would be at the zero option. The Tiger grant, by the way, does, in essence, require at least a 50% match and oftentimes more. So it would be great if we heard yes, but we haven't heard no, but we're anticipating no just because everyone who got a yes heard 2 months ago.
Got it.
Can you stay there for a second? Can I ask?
Just ask through me.
Right, that's why I'm looking at you. If, you said that the Tiger 5 grant usually awards 50% of the amount that's requested?
They look for a matching award from the community.
At
Right,
least
but
50.
If it was 8.2, I thought we needed 8.2 to complete the road with the
So if we got a
town's
Tiger
plan
grant if we wanted 8.2, the Tiger grant would be for 4.1, we'd have to match that.
But you have to say up front that you're going to come up with 4.1 to get an 8 point, to get 4.1 from the federal government.
Oh, okay, so it's not, we're not looking for 8.2 from the,
No,
Okay.
they're not just giving you 4.1. They want to see
Appreciate
you
that
put up
clarification.
4.1.
Yeah, can I,
Go ahead.
we actually did ask for 8.2 because there is a way to ask for 100%. They've just never given 100% to anybody. So because we couldn't provide specific match, because you obviously know who had voted it, we said 8.2 is what it costs. If you want to give it to us, that would be wonderful. But we're going through this process of establishing a TIF district. We're going to come back, if it happens, in the bonding next. So the premise of the narrative is, yes, we understand that this is not going to go forward without a match, but because we had to fill in the box with something, we had to put 100%.
yeah, because I thought I read in the grant application that there's something about going before the town voters for a certain
I
amount.
think what Stu just
Yeah.
clarified is
Yeah.
the element of real life experience.
Yeah. When you talk about this type of tax financing for development in this area, will this now set a precedent or open up this type of financing in other sections of town, such as for,
Not necessarily a precedent, but as mentioned earlier, there's a maximum amount that the community can devote to this type of activity. Stu, you can probably give a better detail of the numbers there.
Yes, it has to be for, let me go back. Remember, it has to be for publicly owned infrastructure. So it has to be roads, sewer, water, sidewalks. And it can't be more than 10% of the,
5% for one district.
5% for one district, 10% for all the districts in the town. This is like 4.5 now, because we made it smaller. And 10% of the assessed value, and this is well below that. So you have enough under your 10% cap to do about the same in one or in combination.
So to answer your question, there are some limits, and also from a precedent-setting standpoint, unlike case law or rulings like this is wholly in the hands of the voters, because they're the ones that hold the purse strings in terms of in the
so
March
it's on
election.
a case-by-case basis, put in front of the town voters. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from the public? Comment? Yes, please come right up. Ask you to state your name and address for the record.
Ray Breslin, 3 Gary Drive.
Welcome.
One thing I'd like to ask is what the necessity is from the town standpoint of assisting in developing this roadway. How is this going to benefit the town?
But were you here for the presentation earlier when our consultant went through that?
Yes, I did get here a little late, but, yeah, I believe I heard most of it. But there was a lot of detail there, but could you tell me specifically how this is going to benefit the town?
I can tell you in general
Well,
that this would help accelerate development, make it happen faster than it would happen through serendipity, and also would control what the development looked like. For example, without the assistance of the design of the community, what you might expect to happen is, as buildings become built, there'll be what we call cul-de-sac type access roads built to them. That will be the least expensive way to get trucks or cars to that building. And so you'll have if you could envision a series of cul-de-sacs coming off the main roads that are there now, that would probably landlock much of the 1,000 or so acres that are there, and certainly not optimize the amount of potential development that could eventually be there, and eventual tax revenues that would come to the community.
yeah, well, okay, but, potentially, maybe there could be some return to the town in tax revenue. But, we're talking about financing this, meaning the town, at this point, without any other assistance from, say, the airport, say the city of Manchester, from the state, from the Tiger Grant, which apparently that Tiger Grant, you would have to assure them that you would have a matching grant. Well, I don't think you were able to do that.
No, if we, as part of the deal, if we went to the voters and they turned down a bond, then we'd lose the grant. That's how it would work.
Well,
So-
yeah,
So if they granted us, if they said you're a winner of the grant,
Yeah,
now you have to match, let's say they give us $2 million, and we're going to match $2 million, and we go to the voters and say, can we have $2 million for this match? And the voters say no, then those who own the funds for the Tiger Grant withdraw the money that they were going to give you, and they don't give it to you.
right. But, I mean, say today, tomorrow, whatever, you get a notification that, yes, you have been approved for that. However, do you have the money to put up to match it?
The approval would be contingent upon the match. And
Okay,
we would go to the
but are they
voters.
going to wait till town meeting in March?
Yes.
They are. They're going to hold that money for the town
Yep.
until it's approved.
That's how it works.
Or they're not going to then give it to someone else?
It would be contingent upon the match, and that
Huh.
that we would, as part of the application, would be during the March election.
Yeah. Do you
Mr.
understand what I'm saying?
Mr. Chair, I would also add that, over the last 2 months, when I've been meeting with the developers and talking to them about the design and construction of Pettingill Road,
Yeah.
I can tell you that both myself and Stu have been very upfront, almost aggressive, in letting them know that we expect to have this to be a private-public partnership and not a solely public endeavor. And to that extent, it certainly is my intention to come back to the council at some point to show them what the buy-in from the private side is, because we do think it truly should be a partnership. In terms of, talking about, well, is this going to bring development or not? Let me tell you what not having Pettingill Road has done for what Londonderry has lost. I'm sure you're probably familiar with the new development along Route 114 near the Bedford Village Inn with the Copper Door Restaurant. There's an assisted living facility there now. There's a medical place, Optics, I believe. There's a credit union. There's probably a Dunkin' Donuts as well. All of that was slated for Pettingill Road. The developers who had a hand in that have a hand in Pettingill as well. They wanted to bring that to Londonderry, but because the road is not built, and because of the time frame in dealing with bringing business into the areas, they have to go with what's available. That land and the access was available there in Bedford, before Pettingill was available. So Londonderry missed out on that opportunity. The longer we wait as a town to try to get this road built, the more opportunity for development we're going to continue to miss out on. But I would agree with you that this shouldn't solely just be a public endeavor, that there needs to be buy-in from the private side as well.
Right, but at this point, you don't have any commitment from any developer that says they're going to pitch in.
Well, let me say that we can't discuss that in public. We have all engaged in non-disclosure agreements with some private developers who have expressed some interest. However, it's a very sensitive topic because if they're going to do something that affects their business and their employees and the location of where their employees might work or might not work, it becomes a very difficult internal business decision for those developers. So I can tell you that we have had a very active discussion with a number of large developers, large businesses that are very interested. And I can't really go much beyond that because we are under a legal obligation not to do that, not at this point. I can also say that the council has set up a premise among itself and with the town manager that we will not support this effort going forward if we don't find it to be either cash neutral or cash positive to the community. So if the scenario plays out as such that the businesses, to your point, aren't lined up, aren't in the pipeline is the vernacular that we're using. If they're not lined up in the pipeline ready to go, then you'll find that this council won't support this effort. So that's the assurance, I guess, that we can give you at this point.
Yeah, well, here's the thing that comes across my mind, and that is we have already, as a town, committed to Woodmont. And that's going to be a big project that is going to affect the town for a long period of time. We don't know exactly all the particulars on that and how it's going to affect it. We don't know when it's going to start, that's all going to come down the road. But the town is going to have to deal with that. And this Pettingill Road, I agree, there is considerable potential there. But, I wonder here, we as a town, are we in the development business? Or are we in the business of taking care of our people here? Okay?
Yes, well, one of the goals of this council has been to try to, for its existing residents and future residents, to provide a stable, if not lower tax rate than you're currently working with. And one of the goals here is to find tax-positive development that will add to our tax base and potentially lower our tax rate because of the fact that industrial commercial type development is typically tax positive. In other words, we get more money in taxes than we have to pay out in services. Unlike residential development, which typically is the flip, where because of school-age children, we typically pay out more in taxes than that property pays in taxes. So the one thing about Woodmont that hopefully is somewhat comforting is that we do have a developer's agreement now in place with Woodmont that assures us that if that development does eventually go tax negative, that the developers are going to make up the difference and keep it at least tax neutral. I can't tell you that it's going to be tax positive, but I can tell you it's not going to be tax negative. On the commercial industrial land up by the airport, which happens to be the largest undeveloped block of land of that type in the state, right next to an airport, right next to two highways, the potential from economic experts like Mr. Arnett over here and from others that we've spoken to tell us that that is literally a gold mine. If we could somehow unlock it and bring it to market, That's a significant potential to help contribute to our tax revenues and potentially lower the amount of property taxes being paid by residential taxpayers by having more tax money being paid by industrial commercial taxpayers.
I understand that, and, you know, that is the desire to have industrial that's going to contribute and perhaps maybe not lower the tax rate, but allow it from escalating too much. But there is another question, too, and that is, I believe that area, which I've heard anywhere from 300 and some acres to over 1,000 acres, what is the acreage we're talking here?
It's about 1,000.
About 1,000. So we're talking about the extended area that goes to the, let's see, that would be, what direction would that be? That would be to the east?
It's the east and
East?
west, south of the airport.
I mean, what we were talking about initially was on the west, right? Yes? Towards Route 3?
Right.
Right.
From
But now we're
Route
talking about
3.
extended area east of the airport. So the total acreage is like 1,000?
Yes.
It goes east to west, but it's all south of the airport.
Yes and no. If we look at the runway, it's not all south of the airport.
Well, certainly not north of the airport. That's
It's
Manchester.
not north of the airport, correct, right. But a part of that land, the area that is to the east, I'm sorry, to the west, isn't that sitting over an aquifer?
I don't know the geological
I think
makeup over there.
Yeah,
It is, but again, it's all, again, Ray, the aquifers are located in this vicinity. They're high recharge rates for water. Again, this has been industrially zoned for a significant amount of time. It's a gateway business district.
Oh.
It's been identified in industrial in the town's planning processes.
Okay, but you know, an aquifer is extremely valuable to the town. Now, that land may not be owned by the town, but if there's an aquifer there, and we're talking about supplying water, and down the road, we're talking about supplying water to the town, that we're either going to have our own water facility, our own wells, or we're going to have a water treatment plant, or we're going to have to pay Manchester for the water. I think that's something we really need to look at.
But that doesn't affect what we're talking about tonight. You know, you may be correct, there's an aquifer there, and anybody who seeks to develop land on that has the aquifer still has to get planning board approval to do their development. This is simply whether we're going to have a tax increment finance district here.
Yeah. But it's,
Bonding is something later, if it actually gets on the ballot in March, and then voters have to approve that by 60%.
yeah.
The issue of the aquifer, I believe the notional plan of the development is that the water that supports the development will not be drawn from the aquifer. It will come in from the Manchester Waterworks through a municipal water supply, which comes basically from the lake.
Yep.
And that also, about 15% of the community now is serviced by Pennachuck Waterworks as a public water supply. So I don't think there's any plans in our future to develop our own community water supply or water treatment system to supply public water to our citizens. We have the Pennachuck in Nashua, which currently supplies, like I said, 15%, and this particular development would be serviced by Manchester Waterworks.
Yeah.
Stu,
Well,
is there?
I understand that. Go
Let's
ahead.
try to help you a little bit. Is there any construction that can be done there at that area, once TIF goes by, once we start building, that will disturb the aquifer? Is there anything that planning board may prevent from happening legally?
As it was pointed out, any project going forward will have to go through the regular planning board process. And you have an existing environmental permit that permits what we're talking about, which includes consideration of all these factors.
No, I understand that, but, okay, so
So,
we said that about a couple times, but
so yes,
really,
this is permitted, and anything going forward would have to receive a permit that would deal with aquifers, wetlands, and everything else
So we've had the environmental impact analysis done already.
on
for
the existing site for
That
this.
was, I think, what Janos was talking about, part of the upfront costs that we've already spent that would be expiring in 2014. Is that part of the package that expires?
It's our permit, right?
Yeah,
so by doing that, we've already established that it would not hurt the aquifer there.
Correct. This is a permitted use.
Okay.
Any additional questions, sir?
Yes. You know, here's the thing, and that is that, you know, the town is expanding, and its needs are expanding. Its water and sewer needs are expanding. We're talking about relying on other towns and private companies for supplying that. You know, there may be a time in the future, within the next 20 years, where those towns are going to reach, you know, they're going to have to supply their own town with their water and sewer. And they may not want to accept or supply water and sewerage to Londonderry. And consequently, Londonderry is going to have to supply their own. If that comes to pass, you know, this aquifer, you know, is going to be something you should take into account. And also, you're talking about developers that are interested. I mean, if you have somebody that is interested in say, like, let's say, a computer or PC board designs, you know what I mean? Okay, so that may not be allowed in that area. So that's going to eliminate them, okay? Also, say somebody comes in and says, we're going to put in, we're going to buy this piece of property, okay? This is privately owned land, okay? Now, whoever owns it now may have someone come to them and say, I want to buy this piece of property, and go to the state of New Hampshire and say, I want a permit to drill artesian wells into that aquifer and sell the water. What control are you going to have over that?
That will have to be handled by the state. The state governs that
Well, you know,
activity.
if the state says, yeah, fine, we'll give that to you,
And we'll
then-
have to.
then that's the name of that tune.
We'll have to communicate with our several state representatives that we have to help help our community.
Yeah.
That use would have to go through the same permitting process as any other request.
Well-
So if it was a water aquifer, if it was a building, any use will have to go through your full planning board process. And if it involves extraction of a natural resource, it may also involve New Hampshire DES. But any scenario this gentleman brings up would have to go through the whole site plan permitting process.
So that would be the time that you would come to the hearings and you would speak your opinion then and fight that battle at that point.
Well, okay, but I want you guys, with all due respect, to take that into account, what I'm talking about, water and sewer.
You have the scenario you just brought up about the property owner could drill wells and take water out. There's nothing that would
Yeah, if you want an
prevent that from-
example of that.
It would be nothing that would prevent that from happening now, given the fact that they could be permitted to do that.
Right.
So this doesn't change that scenario. That scenario could happen tomorrow, as long as the permits are in place. Also, it could happen in this scenario as well.
And I'm not certain that the planning board would have jurisdiction over that.
No,
It
the
may be
planning board
that they
would consider the environmental permit they'd have to get from the state. The planning board does require the applicants to get the appropriate permits by the state, and they have to
Yeah.
bring that,
Yeah,
show evidence of that to the planning board.
But if
An
they- if-
example of that would be in Stratham, they put in a golf course. And they went to the state and asked to have an extraction of, say, 200,000 gallons a day from an aquifer underneath there. And they got that in a very short period of time.
What you're describing then is, if you're saying the planning board doesn't have jurisdiction or has no ability to stop it, they have no ability to stop it.
Okay.
That's the state that, what you just said, is entirely doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of confused as
Okay,
what
well,
you,
I'm-
wait, if I can just finish, sir.
Certainly.
The planning board handles land use for the town.
Right.
If the planning board has no authority, which you apparently
What-
agree with.
I don't know that.
Let me finish, okay, but assuming they don't have authority,
Yeah.
there's not really much that we can do. What you described in Stratham was the state taking action, apparently disregarding, if you're to be believed, the locality that was opposed to this. So I'm not sure what you're asking us to do on some hypothetical that you preface with, we can't, the planning board and the town council lacks authority to do anyway.
I'm suggesting that you should take a look at that and see what your authority is. And if that's the case, that someone can come in and say, tomorrow, I'm going to the state, I'm going to get the permit for that, that you talk to the people at state beforehand and make sure that, that if possible, you do have control over that.
Well, if the planning board does have control of it, then it will go through the normal permitting process.
Okay, but we don't know at this point.
Well, no, nor do we know that some unknown company is going to come and drill wells to take water out of the aquifer either. So
No, we don't.
what?
No, we don't. That's true.
Okay, so I'm just kind of
So-
confused as why we should start investigating a hypothetical.
Right, I was just going to say that. I think that I guess, sir, I'm happy to entertain your questions, but let's restrict it to what's in front of us and not, I mean, we could be here all night talking about hypotheticals, and I'd rather not do that.
Okay. So,
So if you have questions on the resolutions that are before us, based on the based on the presentation that you saw, we're happy to entertain your questions, but hypotheticals are endless in discussion.
okay. So if I understand, you're going to vote this evening to recommend that this go to a ballot on the town meeting?
No, we have two resolutions in front of us. One is to establish a economic revitalization district, which will help the business owners in that district to apply for some tax credits and some tax reductions with the state, not with the town, but with the state. And the other resolution we're voting on is whether or not we want to establish this TIF district. Now, at a later time, if the council so desires, we may put a motion, a vehicle on the ballot to vote to fund some amount for this TIF district. But that's not what we're voting on tonight, and that's not what we're recommending that we do tonight. We still need to see more information. We still need to hear from more constituents, decide how we're going to go forward. But what we may vote on, or we may accept it or reject it tonight, but whether or not we want to establish this district.
Mr. Chair, just one clarification. The first resolution you spoke of is actually the enabling resolution to be able to declare a particular area a TIF district. So the ERZ that you were speaking of will come at a later council meeting before the end of the year to expand that for the businesses. But the two resolutions both pertain to the TIF. The first one is the enabling resolution in order to declare the district, and the second resolution declares the district itself.
Any other questions, sir?
Yeah, is there, exit 5, is that also a prime development area?
At Exit 5, yeah, that, I would say it is. I mean, there are a lot of, there's a lot of development there right now, but more development could happen there. There's a housing development that's recently been approved for that area, right along the highway.
Yeah, I mean, that seems though that's a prime area because of the access, you know, to the exit there, et cetera.
There's been some inquiries to the land that's in front of the Vista Ridge apartment complex.
Is there something would be considered to be a TIF district also?
There are no proposals for TIF in that area, but there's been some off and on inquiries about developers putting some commercial development in front of the Vista
Yeah.
Ridge apartment area.
Okay, just one other thing, and I don't want to take up any more time. And that is, you know, I hear this term, tax positive, tax negative, tax neutral. The only one that appeals to me is tax positive. Tax neutral, is there any benefit to a tax neutral development or, and
Well, I think actually what they were talking about, not so much tax neutral going forward. I think what they were talking about is during the time period you're paying a bond for road construction,
Yeah.
there is enough revenue from this tax increment financing district to cover the debt service on the bond. At some point, the bond will be paid for, and therefore there wouldn't be an associated cost with that. At that point, it would be tax positive. But in the interim, the payments on the bond would be offset by increases in the real estate property values in the tax increment finance district.
Yeah, but we're also talking about using some of the general fund, maybe 50% of the general fund, to pay the bond?
No, sir.
Absolutely not.
No?
No.
No?
No. No, what the gentleman mentioned about the 50% was, at some point, if there's enough revenue from the tax increment financing district to pay the bonds, debt service in each particular year, and then there's an excess over that amount, that would be split between 50% to paying down the bond, additional principal, paying that in advance, and the remaining 50% would be shared with the town and the school district and I guess the county.
But let me give you a math example. For example, let's say that we recommend to the town that we let a bond for this effort, and let's say the bond payment is $500,000 a year. If we get in the first year, if we get $500,000 in new tax revenue from this district, then that's tax neutral. We get the new $500,000 worth of taxes, and we turn around and pay the $500,000 bond payment. Now, in year two, if we get $600,000 from the tax district, because it's growing, we receive $600,000, and we have a $500,000 bond payment to make. We make that $500,000 bond payment, and we now have $100,000 of tax-positive money. Then we decide, what do we want to do with that money? Should we split it? Should we send half to the school, half to the town, some to the county? We have to decide that. Then in year three, let's say we get $1 million in tax revenue from that area. We still have to pay the $500,000 bond payment, so now we have $500,000 of tax positive revenue. And then, again, we have to decide how we want to split up that revenue. Do we want to use it all to pay off the bond, pay down the bond faster? Do we want to split it 50-50 with the school district, 50-50 with the town? So those are good decisions to have before us, because it's additional money that the community wouldn't have had otherwise that we can use to help lower either school district costs or town costs.
Yeah. But as this goes forward, it'll also be under a PUD. Or very well could be, yes?
Did you say PUD?
Perhaps I used the wrong terminology.
No, you might have used the right one, I just didn't hear you. Was it PUD?
The PUD is in the Woodmont area,
The thing that's in Woodmont?
but there is no PUD in this area.
But, I mean, a developer could apply. I mean, it is available, right, throughout the town?
Again, the district has no effect on your planning regulations whatsoever. So what's there is there, what isn't there isn't there.
So if he has over 100 connected acres, he can,
So
Do
whether or not the
PUD.
district is adopted or not, any owner can do whatever the planning regulations allow today. Has no effect on your regulations on land use. Zero.
So if he has the authority to go for a PUD today, he'd have authority to go for it tomorrow. So
Right.
this has no impact on PUDs.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay, hope we answered
Good
your
luck with your
questions.
decisions.
thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions from the public?
Good glasses, sir.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I did that last time, too. Thank you.
Welcome back, Counselor. Any
I don't need
Na-
the title
name and-
anymore, but thank you.
name and
Frank
address for the...
Farmer, 106 Chase Road, Londonderry. Just a couple of questions. One, to help me clear up my own confusion. The agenda doesn't mention that the public hearing's going to cover 2013-11.
We
But it's in your
warned that
packet.
back in,
You warned it at the first
on the
reading?
23rd
Okay.
of September,
And
and
somebody else had a copy of
we
the
had a
packet. so I
typo
got
a
quick
typo
read
on
of
the
that.
agenda.
All right.
And
The
it was
other-
also noticed in the newspaper public notice as well.
That was going to be my next question until I saw the date on here, just that it was warned on the 23rd. So, Mr. Chairman, I guess the question I got was that a statement was made about amending the district, that it can happen at any time. Can it happen after a bond is approved? Or is the bond going to bind the district as of the date of the bond?
I don't know the answer to that question. That's something we'd have to...
It'd be something I'd like to, somebody could research that and.
Would you mind repeating it
If
for
I
Stu?
could,
Yeah, if
Didn't follow your
the,
question,
because
sorry,
the comment was made that the district could be, once it's established, assuming it gets established, it could be amended at any time, right? And you're going to try to vote on this potentially March 2014, right? The voters approve. Can you amend the district after the bond has been approved? You can.
Yes, can I condition what happens when you do? You can amend the district anytime the district is still on the books. The district will be on the books until any debt is paid off, or if there's never any debt incurred, the council can get rid of it anytime they want. But once you incur $1 of debt, until you pay it off, the district's there. The reason you don't typically want to amend districts later, which is why I put more of the what-ifs in earlier, is that, use the vice chairman's example there of having 500 plus another 100 after a couple years. Once you amend, the financial ticker, for lack of a better term, starts over. So the new starting number is not down here, it's at that 600. So for the amended part, you would lose the increment you've gotten to date. In other words, you're really starting the financial thing over again every time you do the amendment. What that does is keeps a town from rolling a district over perpetually and never returning that funds to
So
the
there's a
general fund.
financial disincentive to amend the district.
There's a disincentive if you have bonded correctly.
I'm
But
all,
you- but yes, you
if
can
you
do
have
that.
bonded.
Right.
So,
And if there's an increase in increment, because you don't lose it, but you can't count it for that increment.
I also think you might have some trouble with bond counsel in doing that. You told the public who were buying the bond it was going to be financed through this method. You may have made
think you might
representations
have.
you can't change.
my concern is not so much bond counsel and things like that. Those are all legalities you guys have to jump through hoops with legal and everything else. My concern is the way it's sold to the public, and let's just say that what was on the left was what you sell to the public. And I'm just using these for examples. What was on the left up here, August 2013, is what you're selling the public in March. And you revise it after they approve it to what's on the right. And what they bought was one map, and you changed it to something else.
See, that's what I'm not sure you can do because of the legality of it.
And that's what I want to make, that's what I'm like,
Well, let me, couple
really
things.
sort of looking for.
One is to amend anything, you have to go through the process all over of it as you did to adopt.
Sure.
So we would have to have the hearings, you'd have to have the school board, you'd have to have, so it would be the
But in the
same thing.
meantime, you're sitting here with
Right.
an approved bond for potentially
Right.
8.5 million.
Typically, if there is an amendment request, it is to make the district bigger and/or to do additional projects. So what we have tried to, say in 5 years, someone says, boy, that intersection now, we'd like to do that better, or we'd like to have a fire retention pond or something. That's why we have listed as a lot of potential things up front, so that the need perhaps to amend it later is minimized.
Okay. Next question, and I guess, is earlier that was mentioned that the potential value of the roadway was $8.5 million. Is that price tag or estimate been updated lately? Is that a recent price?
Yes.
This sounds like the one that's been floating around for a while. Just seems to me like,
I just got from Giannis that it's recently been
Originally,
updated.
the escalation was around 5% was included, and we are seeing from the past, the escalation was like 3%, so we left the number alone.
so you established that, I'm sorry, I'll ask the question. So the 8.5 is an escalated value based on a value established 1, 2, 5 years ago, some point in time?
Yes.
And it's been escalated over time?
And the escalation has been less than we thought it was going to be originally.
Can you pinpoint the year that the original price came from?
Remember the original year that we estimated that?
I think it was probably, going 4 years back, 5 years back, 4 or 5
Okay.
years back.
So 2008, 2009 time period?
Okay.
Stu, question. Can we put a restriction on this TIF district not to reduce it until the bond is paid off? Is that something that we can roll into the plan? We can expand it, but we can't reduce it? I know what you're saying about, you get,
Just
Other-
thinking, it's
Well, I
a
mean, it's-
selling condition on getting the vote.
I mean, is that something that can be done?
Sure.
I just hate to see things sold under one pretense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then the pretense changes.
I
And
agree.
you're advertised tonight an ability to change the pretense. So as one citizen, I'd prefer you not do that. That's disregarding whether I would be in favor of this or
I
not.
think the context it was offered in is up until the March vote. I think what we're saying is that we're going to hear from more constituents, and if there are compelling arguments to change the district one way or the other,
Yeah.
that I think that we have the option to do that. I think there would be a real reluctance for a number of reasons to change it after a bond vote.
I'm one to tell you as a citizen that I would share that reluctance.
And I know it's real easy to start thinking this way, that you see that and say, well, something's going to happen in that. Remember, that's a catchment area for the tax increments. It's not a zoning map, it's not, so it was designed to both anticipate where there might be public investment need over the next 20 years, and also areas we thought would have potential of incremental gain.
I think our thinking is the types of changes that we might make would be for how the excess money might be distributed.
Right.
Down the road. So maybe we give the school district a larger percentage than we originally had planned or whatever. I think those are the type of changes I don't think we're thinking really about changing the map or anything along those lines.
And that, to answer your question, certainly you could put something in that says, instead of, it will absolutely be, you could say, a range of to be determined every year, every 2 years. And so then you're not changing the adopted language. You're saying we did exactly what we said we were going to do. Yeah.
So your comments led to another question. I'm going to try to make this short, too. I got to go home. But the Resolution 2013-11 in the final whereas paragraph says that for each such district, the municipality shall establish a development program and a tax increment financing plan. Is your adoption of this resolution tonight go with an established plan, or does it say you're going to establish a plan
I think what it does, it enables us
to proceed?
proceed to the plan.
Would the plan have to include those steps and those measures, such as the share between the town and school district general funds, or would it be not a complete
Stu,
plan?
I'm sorry, the resolution adopting the map and the plan are in the resolution. So there is a development plan, and that's why it says what we want to do with the,
Your financing plan's not in there.
No.
it is in the general parameters, it is. What is required is in that resolution.
You're talking about 2013-12, though.
Yeah.
He's talking about 2013-11, right?
2011 is the enabling legislation.
Yeah.
That enables us to adopt such a district.
Yeah.
2012 includes the plan.
And so the 2012,
Separate
the fourth whereas actually talks about the development plan and making
Okay,
this
so
plan
this-
actually
so this-
part of the,
This public hearing is both you're talking about together.
Yes.
So does 2013-12, does the financing plan included in there already include the division of potential split?
page 3, yeah, of that.
Does it tell you you're giving it all to the general fund, or 50/50, or any of it going to the school district?
It gives an option.
So it provides as an option. So it's sort of an open, you could decide the option later.
It says, until such time as the captured assessed value as defined in section 162-K-10 exceeds the amount paid on all debt, administration and escrow requires for one full fiscal year, the town shall utilize all 100% of the incremental proceeds to pay down debt directly into escrow, sorry. After one full year of the captured assessed value above the amount required to meet all debt servicing, administration and escrow requirements, the remaining amount shall be evenly distributed 50% into an escrow to escalate the bond repayment and 50% into the general fund accessible by the town, school, and county for operating and capital budgets as regularly adopted by their respective budget authorization processes.
But, okay, so it's 50/50, and then the 50 that goes to the general fund, you will later determine how much goes to town, school, and other.
Actually, I think it will probably go by the ratio of the tax rates.
Well, that's
It
one
doesn't
way.
have to, but it
Well, it's one
probably-
way to
probably
do
right,
it. That would be
right.
one way to do it.
Right.
It seems like that, off-the-cuff remark might be the most equitable way to do it, from one perspective. So, okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the public? Okay, bring it back to the council. Any further comments before we take a vote? Any,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
yes, please.
I think we have to look outside the box, and we have to look at it as a business. What we're trying to do is we're trying to stabilize and bring in more tax revenue. And this is not from a government standpoint, but from a business standpoint, this is a pretty sound plan. You have Hooksett, you have Derry, you have Nashua, you have Bedford. Bedford, which we know has already taken development from us. Success comes with some risk. Is there risk in everything? Yes, there is. But this is a pretty sound plan, and there are other towns, we're not the front runner here. We're taking a back seat, and until we do something like this, we're going to continue taking a back seat.
Thank you. Yes.
So, Stu, I actually have a question for you. This comes up from the constituents quite often, and I bring I think a good argument, but I'd like to hear yours.
Sure.
How does this area differentiate, I guess, the people that are trying to get into Londonderry? If you were to look at Jack's Bridge and you were to look at everything we've done up there over the past years, how does this differ from that? How is this a better area than the Jack's Bridge area? I mean, I know I have my feeling, but I want to hear from you.
I don't know the Jacks Ridge area well. I mean, I've seen what you've done with it. But my initial impression is that if you look at the inquiries and the construction the last couple of years, and the inquiries that are in the system, this seems to be becoming a desired location for logistics and distribution. And I'm presuming it's because of new access road, the expansion of the interstate eventually, and the Pettingill connection and the airport.
So, one of the things at Jack's Bridge, it's near a highway, so, and everybody says, well, we have a road really close by to that area, why isn't that exploding? And so, for the other 4 or 5 things that you just mentioned, the airport,
Yeah, and I think that area's doing okay, too. We recently had an inquiry from the state for someone looking for 240,000 square feet, and we showed them a spot at each because they're very comparable. So I think there's some similarities, Counselor, but this seems to be developing as a logistics distribution theme, for lack of a better term. And like most industry clusters, they tend to go where their others go, where I'm sure there's individual pros and cons. I think the other thing that this also probably has